Welcome to video 3. In this video we will look at the different item types, which ones are the most appropriate for testing a particular skill, and what to watch out for when writing those items. The large number of different item types used in language testing can be categorized in various ways. Some are seen as objective, in that no human judgment is required in marking them, while others demand a constructed response and subjective marking methods. Some are based on receptive skills, that means reading and listening, while others test production, that means speaking and writing. Some are text-based, while others are freestanding or discrete. Although some item types are more frequently used than others, it would be inappropriate to believe that these are the best ones to use. The most important criterion for measuring the value of an item type is its appropriacy for use in testing language in a particular situation and for a specified purpose. There are a few general rules to follow when constructing any kind of item. Good items should not contain word spots. Word spots mean that the same word in the input text is found in the item as well. They should not contain a negative. Negative forms should be avoided as much as possible. They should test only language ability, as opposed to geographical knowledge, for example. They should not contain, they cannot be answered with common knowledge. That means answering them without reading the input. And they should not contain adverbs of degree, like rarely, seldom, or sometimes. They should contain plausible but distinctly wrong distractors that relate also to the input. Distractors are other possible but wrong answers. And good items have face validity. That means they seem authentic and realistic. Now we will look at the different item types, starting with multiple choice and other selection item types. When selection item types are used in a test, it is likely that the test provider considers some of the following features of these items to be advantageous. This type is often used with an input text to test reading or listening abilities. Selection items tend to be familiar to nearly all candidates in all places. They tend to be independent of writing ability, easy and quick to mark, and capable of being objectively scored. And they are also economical of candidates' time, so that many can be attempted in a short period and a range of objectives covered, adding to the reliability of the test. On the other hand, it should be pointed out that selection items are sometimes criticized because they tend to be also tests of recognition rather than production. And they are limited in the range of what they can test. They're also incapable of letting a candidate express a wide range of abilities. And they're affected by guesswork. Even with 3 distractors, there is a 1 in 4 chance of getting the answer right by guessing, while with fewer distractors, the effect increases accordingly. Multiple choice items are also very difficult and time-consuming to write successfully, and they are capable of leading to poor classroom practice, especially if teaching focuses too intensively on preparation for tackling this sort of test item. So what are the rules for writing test-based multiple choice items? Items should not be independent. That means the answer to one item should not influence the answer to another. There should be only one correct option, and its status as key must be clear and unambiguous. The distractors, while being incorrect, should be plausible enough to distract weak candidates. Options should form a coherent set of alternatives. There should be no three similar-looking options and one that stands out as very different from the others. Each option should be as close in length to the others as possible. And options which cancel each other out using words such as always and never should be avoided. Other types of multiple choice items, for example, gap filling or closed passage with multiple choice. A closed test is one in which words are deleted from a text, creating gaps which a candidate has to fill, normally with either one or two words. Within this basic format there are several variations. The gaps may be created mechanically, for example by the deletion of every sixth or seventh word. And there are certain types of words that may be deleted at irregular intervals throughout the text. There is also a closed test known as open, in which a candidate supplies the missing words, where no choice is given. Because of the limits on choice imposed by the multiple choice format, this type of close is often used in tests of reading or of grammar and usage, in a section of the test where the focus of testing is on knowledge of vocabulary. It can also be used for testing knowledge of structure, although open-close is also suitable for that purpose. The disadvantage of selective deletion gap filling is that the range of skills that can be tested by this method is very limited and restricted to sentence level. Matching tasks. There are a number of variations of matching tasks. What they all have in common is that elements from two separate lists of sets of options have to be brought together. At its simplest, matching is sometimes used in tests of structural competence when the first halves of sentences are given in one set and the correct second half of each sentence has to be selected from another set, as seen as in the picture. A more extensive type of matching task presents the candidate with two sets of descriptions, one of which is usually of people who have some particular requirement, for example a certain type of holiday, a book or accommodation, and the other set gives details of holidays, books, accommodation, etc., out of which there is only one which fits exactly the requirements of each person. This kind of task is used in tests of reading. This kind of matching exercise can be used with candidates at quite an elementary level. It is usual to specify that each choice can be used only once, and stating this limitation is an essential part of the rubric. Items for which the candidate has to provide the response come in a variety of types, from sentence completion or short answer types, where the candidate may have to supply as little as one word, a number or a short phrase, to types requiring longer and more complex operations. It may be claimed that by comparison with selection types, they are easy to write, minimize the effect of guessing, allow for creativity in language use, and measure higher as well as lower order skills, and have a more positive effect on classroom practice. But these types of items also have their limitations. Even the most controlled types are difficult to construct in such a way that the required response is clearly indicated. There are often acceptable alternative responses rather than only one unambiguously correct response. This makes them time-consuming and difficult to mark, often calling for examiner marking rather than computerized marking or similar automated systems. What these item types have in common is that even in the most tightly controlled examples, candidates have to supply some language of their own, rather than choose among options supplied to them. Although they may appear in tests of reading, listening, and structural competence, an element of writing is involved. In some cases, this is done with the candidate's own language, but it is more likely to be a requirement of the test that the writing is in the target language. This raises the issue of spelling. The mark scheme must specify the policy towards spelling. If poor spelling is penalized, candidates for whom this is a particular problem will be unable to show their true level of language ability. If spelling is disregarded, there is the problem of deciding at which point a badly spelled version of a word ceases to be an acceptable representation of this word. There are certainly many more different types of items which could not be covered in this module. It might be worth to have a look at the model tests provided by many major test providers. They could give you instructions for your own tests. If you follow some of the guidelines given here, you can maintain decent levels of validity and reliability in your tests. That also means that they are a valuable feedback for your students and for yourself. Thank you for your attention.